Welcome to In My Own Words podcast.
I never took a straight path nowhere.
And I'm your host, Benjamin Borges.
I'm hurt, dog. Don't ask me if I'm alright. Hell no.
Shit, that always gets me hyped.
On this podcast, I'm talking about sports, life, history, and motivation. Even though with the politics sometimes, definitely gonna have some guests. No topic is off motherfucking limits.
Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. Not even me.
Yeah, you right, Will. Hope you guys enjoy the show. Alright guys, here we are with the In My Own Words podcast. Our guest, but I like to call him a co-host, is Trent Steele. He's part of the Anti-Predator Project, actually one of the founders. So I'm going to let him take over and just kind of tell you guys what it's about because it's really important stuff that you guys need to hear about. Trent, go ahead.
Well, thanks. First of all, thanks for having me on. It's always an honor, number one, to reconnect with old friends, and number two, to be a part of something like this.
Absolutely, man.
My wife and I, we co-founded a completely non-profit. We are registered with the IRS, 501c3 private investigative agency, and we specialize in all things human trafficking, from the criminal investigations into individuals and organizations that are involved in it, to the location and recovery of children that have been bought and sold on the black market. Anything that you can think of that's human trafficking related, we do. We don't charge our clients a dime for our services. It's kind of our gimmick. We make sure that people who need help can get it. And so we take cases. We're based here out of Miami, but we take cases all over the country. We currently have cases everywhere from here in Miami out to the West Coast in California, all the way up to the Midwest and over into Washington, D.C., so we're spread out pretty good. I work with a team of volunteer investigators as well. We, just like our cases, we kind of span the country, so to speak. I've got several down here in Miami. I've got a couple more up in Central Florida. I've got a guy out on the West Coast. I've got somebody up in the Midwest, and I've got a few people up in the New York, Washington, D.C. area that help me out when I need some assistance up that direction too. So
how did these? I'm guessing they're investigators or law enforcement.
Yeah, everybody that's working with me now is a private investigator. Well, with the exception, I guess, of my computer guys and my cyber crimes guys. Essentially when this whole thing started organically, I started reaching out to specific types of people that had certain backgrounds, because I started realizing kind of what backgrounds I needed. And so, it was actually very simple. I went through websites like LinkedIn, and I searched like here in Florida, we have what they call the Florida Association of Licensed Investigators.
Okay.
And that's I'm a member of it. It's basically an association where we all pay our dues every year. They represent us in the legislature and all that, but it also has a list of all the investigators throughout the state. So I went through that and I looked through people's bios, and I went to people that had certain skill sets. Not all private investigators are former law enforcement. Not all of them have the type of experience that I'm looking for. I also have another private investigative agency that I work in where we take, I guess, quote unquote, regular PI work, where we do insurance work and stuff like that. And nothing against guys that specialize in insurance work or specialize in,
You mean like, when you say insurance work, you mean like insurance fraud?
Yeah, well, not just insurance fraud, but like workman's comp,
right.
Stuff like that. Nothing against those guys, but it's not necessarily the skill set that we need. We focus on guys that not only were former law enforcement, but usually held some sort of an investigative job, whether it was a detective, something along those lines, where they weren't
somebody who's seen, for lack of a better word, some shit.
Yeah,
right?
exactly, and not only that,
somebody who knows that there's like stuff going on and they wanted to do more.
Exactly, and also another area that we specialize in, that we hunt people down, is we like to get people from the intelligence agencies and from the special operations world. And obviously we enjoy getting people from the intelligence agencies simply because they come with a very, very special skill set, a way of thinking that, really nobody else in the world has. And then, the special operations guys are very similar. They're very quick on their feet. They think very well, and they can take care of themselves. This job can get hairy at times. There's no doubt about that. And so, I get probably 15 to 20, volunteer, messages a month from our website. Unfortunately, a lot of them are from people that.
What's that website so our listeners can?
The website, where everybody can get any of our information is www.antipredatorproject.org.
Okay.
And, you can go there, you can volunteer, we've got a blog, that we've not been real great about updating, lately because my, computer girl that's been doing this for me, had to go back home to France, and so she's tying loose ends up there. So we haven't been real good about updating the blog. In fact, this will probably be the next thing that goes up, when I do it.
Okay.
So, but we've got a blog, we've got a website, lists our board of directors. We just formed an advisory board. We're going to go ahead and put that information up there as well. And it kind of just, gives some background on some of the cases that we're involved in, some of the things that we're doing. And, obviously if you need our help, if there's something going on that you have a question about, there's a link you can contact us. And that's good to contact us if you need our help on a case, if you want us to come speak to one of your groups, another media appearance, whatever it is, you can contact us via the website and we'll make sure that it gets, to the right place.
So we were talking earlier, so how do you get the word out there to like these, cause child predators and stuff like that, how do you get the word out to these kids, to make them more aware, more alert of certain things?
Well, we're just now, because we've been so busy, we're just now getting, we're starting to put together a community awareness program. I've spoken, at a couple of different schools. I interact with any parents that, would like to speak with me. I know during the day I work in child welfare and I have several coworkers that have children. I interact with with them on a parental level, often. They have questions. And we've been doing, in fact, the last, couple, I think, not several years, we've also done, there's a conference that's held every year up in your neck of the woods in, Clearwater, for the International, Association of Human Trafficking Investigators. And every year, we're a sponsor of that conference, and we have a booth, an informational booth set up there as well. So, we're starting to spread the word. We're going to start getting out more in the community here in the next coming months. We're going to try to start attending some more, big events, having booths present. We're going to make a much more concerted effort to get out and speak to different groups. We want to speak to, not only schools and parental groups, but we're making an effort to get out and speak to, number one, any group that's interested in making a donation. So we speak to those groups, but also groups that may come into contact with this particular problem in one way or another. Everybody from emergency room personnel in the medical field to, lawyers that may, come across this in the courtroom. So we're going to make more of a concerted effort to get out and speak with different groups here in the future. So that's kind of how we've been getting the word out, and we hope to do a much better job of that coming up here in the next 6-7 months and then moving forward from that.
So what made you get started with this, man?
Well, when we parted ways at our former employer,
yes, sir.
I was looking for a way to decide what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I'd been going to school and doing different things, and I hadn't really found anything that really tripped my trigger, anything that I was like, man, I have to get up and do that every day. It was always, to me, man, I just got to get up and I got to earn a paycheck and then move on with my life. And so I started working, I took this job in child welfare. One of my jobs,
And is that child welfare job? Is that working for the county?
State. They're working for the state.
Okay.
So we work with kids in foster care, and one of my jobs when I got there was to work with 16, 17-year-olds, 15-year-olds that were all getting ready to age out of the system and go into the real world. And I had the opportunity to work with several young people that were trafficking victims. I came across their cases and heard their stories, and they were quite troubling. And then I started. It was something I became interested in because one of the interests that I always had was law enforcement, getting into law enforcement. But I really was never big on sitting behind a patrol car wheel and driving around. I wanted to get into law enforcement because I wanted to help people. I wanted to do something that made a difference. So this was something where it really struck a chord with me because this was people that were being victimized that they couldn't help themselves. And so this is somewhere where it really got to me. And at the same time, I was also working on doing my internship, obtaining my internship for my private investigator's license at the time. And I had the opportunity through that to work on a couple of different trafficking cases as well about the same time that really piqued my interest. And so I started talking to other people that did similar things, whether it was people that were helping the victims of trafficking after they'd been recovered or other private investigators that had worked cases. And I started finding out that this was something I was really passionate about. So my wife and I, we co-founded this back in 2012. 2012 was the official date, but we really started working on it all the way back in 2011. But we co-founded this, and it's really been my baby ever since then. This is it's the one thing in my life that I find that I don't ever lose passion for, that I get up every day and I can work from sun up to sundown on it and not really get tired of it. I've been blessed in the fact that I've got a lot of great people around me, including my wife, that have been very supportive, but a lot of great people that work with me as well that have volunteered their incredible skill sets and their abilities at no charge, just to help us out because they believe in what we're doing. And so, it kind of grew from there, and we've been doing this for 4 years now, and a little over 4 years actually. And we, it's gone from something that was small, and we were just taking a couple of cases, every couple of months, and it wasn't anything big, to now we've probably got, I would say, 6 or 7 active cases as we sit, and I've got at least 3 or 4 phone calls I've got to return here in the next couple of days regarding consultations on other cases, whether or not we're going to take them. We'll go ahead and do a review on them and see if they fit the criteria for us to take them. Unfortunately, the workload is not slowing down. Human trafficking in 2015, human trafficking was a $30 billion a year business. It was, tied with illegal weapons trafficking as the second most profitable crime on the planet. In 2016, a lot of the experts expect it to overtake illegal weapons trafficking and become the second most profitable crime on the planet, right behind drug trafficking. And if things keep continuing on the trend that they are, it will most likely overtake drug trafficking within the next 5 to 6 years.
Have you, in your time doing this, have you noticed like a connection between drug trafficking and human trafficking? Are a lot of the same people who sell drugs and traffic drugs, are they trafficking humans? Is that like an employee type? I don't want to say employee because they're taken against their will, but like a slave trade as to make them work, or as another source of, for lack of a better word, commerce?
Absolutely. It's unfortunately those two worlds tend to go hand in hand. It's especially here the last 3 or 4 years when organized crime has really gotten in on it. Over in Europe, the Russian mob and the European organized crime folks, they've been involved in this for quite a while. This is not new to them. But what we've seen, especially here in Miami, and I know from speaking with contacts out west in California and Texas, I know they've seen an influx of this as well out there. We've seen the drug cartels get a lot more active with this as well, and the reason is it's and it sounds horrible to put it in terms like this, like business terms, but it's supply and demand, and then the issue is this: if they smuggle 15 kilos of cocaine across the border and they sell those 15 kilos, well, those 15 kilos are gone and they've got to bring more in. If they smuggle 15 girls across the border and hold them, they can sell that girl between 15 and 50 times a night.
Yeah, it's a revolving door.
It's a revolving door. It's a reusable product, so to speak, for them. So they've learned this trade over the last 4 or 5 years, and they've gotten quite good at it. They've also learned that it's better for them to not only get these girls, but then force them to take the girls the drugs and their supply across the border, because if they get caught, well, it's just some random girl that's bringing drugs across the border. But if they get through, then the drugs and the girl get through, and they can sell them both on the other side. It's a pretty sickening equation. And
so
go ahead.
No, so like how you refer to saying that they make a certain amount of money, like each night you get a turnover with how much you make instead of the drugs. Is there a specific, I don't want to say it like this because is there a specific kind of child that demands more money from on the black market, or is that
it? And that's a disturbing question, but it
is a disturbing question. Like I feel very sick asking these kind of questions, but I feel like these are the type of questions people need to ask because people need to know the answers.
Absolutely, and it's a world that people need to know exists, and absolutely there is certain types of children and certain types of people that fetch certain prices, and right now the top dollar is going to fetch is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed American girl between 9 and about 13 years old.
Why is that? Like, why is that?
That seems to be the most desirable child right now. And that's a 6-figure payday all day long to the right people. And what you'll see happen is, a lot of these, girls wind up, we're seeing a lot of them wind up in Mexico. And the, local bars, different places there. They're once again all under the control of drug cartels. But, depending on what one of these sickos wants, they'll pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, if they can get what they want and if they can do what they want. And it's, I'm trying to think of a way to put this that won't be completely ridiculous, but they, we've spoken previously about the dark web and some of the things that go on there. There are different places on the dark web that broadcast live child pornography shoots, and what they'll do is they'll set it up so it's like a chat room, and they'll be able to go in and say, I want to see this, and they set up ways that they can get paid, and they'll set up what they want to see, like an a la carte type of deal, and it's a very disturbing thing, and it's much more common than people think, and it's not something that is just something that just happens on TV, or something that just happens in other countries that nobody cares about. This happens all over the globe, and it happens to American children as much as it happens to kids in Mexico, kids in Africa. Pick a country. Human beings, by nature, some of them are very evil, and it doesn't matter where they're at. They're going to victimize the easiest prey, and unfortunately, children tend to be the easiest prey.
That's insane. What was I going to ask you? I popped into my head, but then it just kind of So, like, I think it speaks a lot about you as a person and as a man, because there's been tons of people that have worked, if not hundreds of thousands that have worked in child welfare, that just kind of punch in and punch out, right? Where they're just like, let's make a difference in these amount of kids' lives. Because I'm sure you have, like, crappy employees that work with you, you know what I mean? Not a lot of people see that and then, want to be like, you know what, I want to do more than just this.
Well,
And I want to make it not for profit, and I just want to help out of the kindness of my heart and just help these people that are completely helpless.
well, the reason, and for me, it boils down to this. It boils down to me being able to sleep at night and being able to look myself in the mirror. I'm a firm believer that if you know that there's a problem, and you don't do anything about it, then you're helping that problem continue. You're assisting that problem. And, I guess maybe some people don't have that mentality, and maybe some people, think that it's just easier if they turn their head and pretend it doesn't exist. I'm not cut out of that kind of material, and I've got to be able to sleep at night. And because of that is also why we made this thing a nonprofit, simply because, I come from the private investigative world. I work regular cases. We charge our clients $120 an hour. The reality is that, 95% of America cannot afford to pay those prices. I mean, and these are not cases that are open and shut in 2 hours or 3 hours. These are cases that, require, hundreds of hours of man hours of work. And, at $120 an hour,
it's hard. It's very hard to pay that. Yeah.
In fact, we're putting together, we just formed an advisory board to help us raise some money, and we're putting together some numbers for them. And I was just putting together the numbers the other day to show them so they have an idea of what's going on. And with all of our cases that we've got going right now, from the time that we started working them till current, we are currently tallied at well over $500,000 in donated time, resources, etc. To this point. So, that gives you an idea of exactly, how much money is involved in this and why we had to make it nonprofit, simply because people can't afford to pay those prices. And I'm not cut out of the kind of material where I have somebody call me and say, hey, you know what, I need your help. I need you to do this. I can't say, sure, I would love to help you and your child, but
if the price is
right. But you got to cut me a $10,000 retainer check first.
It
goes back to being able to sleep at night, and I guess that's my biggest thing why I got into this, because I got to be able to sleep.
Yeah. What kind of people are part of your organization? I guess is it just investigators? Like, tell us something about that.
Like I said earlier, we're very blessed to have a very diverse group of people. Our board of directors is highly made up of people that I've known personally for years. And they helped us form our board of directors. Our advisory board is because their job is to help raise money, and their job is to help us with brand building and things of that nature. Our advisory board is made up of people that come from all different walks of the business world, from the aerospace industry to the legal side. Guys that are former military folks, retired military guys that are now in business, computer experts. So people that understand all walks of business. And then, my investigative team, I can't say enough about them. I've got guys that are former Navy SEALs, former federal agents, former local law enforcement guys that all work in the field for me. I've also got some other people that are part of my team that have other specialties. I've got a couple different guys that are computer experts that help us out with the cyber crimes and help us do stuff like that. I've got another lady that does a lot of our intelligence analyst work and puts together spreadsheets and PowerPoints of intel on cases for us. So, I've got a team of people, everybody from our advisory board to our board of directors, and to the team that works out in the field. that come from a very, very diverse backgrounds that, I can't say enough about them. Without them, none of this stuff happens. Without them, we're not able to help these people the way we are now.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's really powerful stuff. And it's I guess at the same time where you're losing faith in humanity, you're kind of gaining some back because all these people are donating their time to help, you know what I mean, make a difference. And it's not to say to necessarily help you, because it's not. This is a completely selfless act. It's about helping the victims in this, right? So it's kind of like it goes hand in hand. Something that just dawned on me: while you're seeing the most dark side of humanity, you also can see the lightest side.
That's, and I guess I couldn't put it any better than you just did. Doing this work and having to deal with the things that we deal with and look at the things that we look at on computer screens and talk to the scumbags that we talk to, it's very, very easy to lose faith, in humanity and lose faith in anything good in this world. But then to see a team like we've got pull together, and do everything that they're doing for free out of the goodness of their own heart because they believe in what we're doing, it really does restore a lot of your faith that there are still some good people out there. And it equals out that balance between good and evil in this world, so to speak. Even if you're not a real spiritual person, you can't do this job and believe that evil doesn't exist in this world. And some of the things that I've seen and the stories that I've heard, speaking to other investigators and other people that do this, evil is probably, the nicest way to put it. Purely the work of the devil, however you want to put it.
Right.
But by default, if you're going to believe in evil, you got to believe there's some good in the world too. And these people that have been generous enough to not help me out, but to help the cause out, are proof that there's still some good.
Lost you there, Trent, a little bit.
Am I back now?
Yeah, you're back now.
No, I was just saying that, the people that have been nice enough to donate their time and this wonderful team that I've surrounded myself with, they're proof that, there still is good in the world and that it can counterbalance, the evil that truly does exist as well. So, you're right, it does. It helps restore your faith in humanity, so to speak.
I saw you said earlier about the dark web. Kind of give us some stories about what you've seen on there, because we were talking about it earlier, but I feel like people need to hear the darkest of the darkness in a way, so they're not as oblivious to that whole feeling like, oh, it's all good, but it hasn't happened to me, so it doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
Like give some people some visuals of what you've seen and what you've come across in your experience.
Absolutely. One of the things that we do, and one of the things that we've been doing quite heavily on one of our cases lately, is we surf a couple of identified websites on the regular web, and by regular web I mean Google, Yahoo, and I know there's probably some technical nerds out there that are going to kill me because I'm not using the right terms, but right. I'm not a computer guy. I've got a lot of people that help me out with this stuff, so I'm gonna put it in my Neanderthal like terms. So hopefully everybody will be able to understand it. So what happens is there are some sites that do exist on the mainstream web, and one of these sites in particular has a chat room in it where these sickos go to discuss their various topics and various sick things that they're into, whether it's children, whether it's bestiality, whatever perversion you can think of, they cover it all. And so what we'll see a lot is they'll start talking in these chat rooms, and then when they get to something that they know will get them into some sort of trouble, they'll start talking in a funny code, and then sometimes they'll post a link to a site on what we refer to as the dark web. The dark web is essentially the unpoliced portion of the internet. for lack of better terms. It's the Wild West. There's no way to track who's on there, and the only way to get anywhere is to have an exact web address. So you got to get there using the browser that I use is called Tor, T-O-R. And you know, I guess the best way to compare the dark web for people that may be listening to this that maybe are a little bit older would be before Windows came along on computers. You had the old MS-DOS systems on the computer where you had to type in all the commands. That's probably the easiest way to explain how the dark web works. And so what we'll do is we'll copy and paste these web addresses into our Tor browser. And I mean, they take us to everything from sites where they're trading kiddie porn that involves kids as young as 2 and 3 months old, all the way up to 16, 17 plus. We've seen child auctions on the internet where they are literally auctioning. The one that we saw was a taped deal that they were replaying. We're not sure when it was taped, but it was a taped deal that somebody was replaying. There was not, from what we could tell, it was not taking place anywhere in America. You know, we've seen, you know, some horribly, you know, miserable stuff. There is also a genre on there that they refer to as snuff films. And I'll get back into the story that I was talking to you about, because that to me is the most horrific one I've ever heard about. And I didn't.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. That's been playing in a loop in my brain. When
you know,
that's been.
You know, the gentleman that tells this story, once again, his name is Ty Ritter, R-I-T-T-E-R, and he runs a recovery team out of California. And he was telling this story on the Dr. Phil show. They were trying to recover a child, and the details escape me at the moment, but I believe it was somewhere in Mexico. And when they kicked down the door to recover this particular child, they were in the midst of shooting what's known as a snuff film. And what they had done is they had taken this girl and they had tied her up to a bed, and they took a nail and drove it right down the center of her brain, which causes the body to convulse and shake. And what they did is they filmed somebody having sex with her while this was going on. And they walked in right in the middle of this. Now, what happens, and the sad part about this is, you know, there was nothing they could do at that point to help the girl. It was a lost cause. But they took a picture. She had a tattoo on her, and they estimated that tattoo to be anywhere, you know, between maybe about 10 years old, give or take, which put the girl. They also estimated her age at 18, 19 years old. And so what happens, and we do know that this happens, what happens is you get involved with these rings that specialize in the real sick stuff, the young children, the rape, the torture, just some horrible stuff. You'll get into these rings that specialize in that. And so what happens is they get these kids, and they get kids from a bunch of different sources, you know, and including here in America. But a lot of them that we see come from South and Central America, from, you know, these poor towns and these poor cities where, you know, their parents either, you know, can't, keep track of them or don't, or in some cases even sell them, themselves. And so, what happens is these kids in a very early age get involved with these specialized rings, and they use them up until they're no longer of service. This girl had probably hit 18 or 19 years old. She was too old for their demographic. So she was no longer of any monetary value to them. So what happens is the only monetary value she had left was to die, for these sickos. And so that's the last use that she had for them. And
that with that nail to the head, that I can't imagine that must have been a quick death.
No, it's not. I mean, you shake out and you bleed out, and the guy that tells the story when he, it's a very powerful piece. And you can find it if you Google him on the Dr. Phil show. I believe it's even on his website. It's a very powerful piece. And this is a big, tough dude. I mean, this guy he's a Vietnam veteran. He's a professional bodyguard. He's pretty much about one of the toughest dudes I've ever seen. And he just gets overcome with emotion and starts crying when he talks about it. It's stuff that's so horrific that it no matter who you are, if it doesn't affect you, you don't have a soul.
Right.
Yeah.
If that type of stuff doesn't change you or make you want to do something, like I can't justify your humanity.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like
you don't serve a purpose on this planet if that kind of stuff doesn't bother you. And the worst part is there's a lot of people, especially here in America, that want to pretend that we live in this fantasy land and we're protected by this bubble and this stuff doesn't go on here. And by doing that, by pretending that this doesn't happen and oh well, it's not affecting my child or my family, so I'm going to move on to something else. By doing that, you're doing nothing but helping it continue, because the only way we're ever going to stop this is to bring some awareness to it, make people smarter so they don't become victims. And then, the other issue too is like everything else in this world, it's about money. I said earlier that it was a $30 billion a year business last year. The thing that drives this is money. You've got to take their money supply. I mean, think about it. People, gas station clerks all over this country, they get shot over $50 in a cash register every night.
Yep.
What are these people willing to do to protect a $30 billion a year industry?
Everything.
I mean, it's that's the thing. It's the most disturbing stuff that I've ever encountered. And like I said earlier, it's the one thing that has hit me, in life where, I get up every day and I think about it. I think about it all day, and how I can stop it and what I can do. And it's become my life's work. It's become my team's, life's work. And I don't think we're ever going to be able to stop it, but, hopefully we can, bring a resolution to some of it for some people.
Yeah, man. I mean, just bring some closure to some family. Absolutely. I guess is almost how you have to gauge. I don't want to say a victory, because that lessens what you're doing, but
absolutely. Well, I mean, nobody wins in these.
No, nobody really wins, because a victim, even if rescued, I can't ever assume is ever the same. Because I mean, that you've seen the darkest of humanity. How do you begin to even the process to trust somebody else?
Well, and a lot of time these girls are too. They're kept under control with drugs. If they are recovered, they come out of there with a horrible dependence habit, usually with narcotics. And then that doesn't even scratch the surface of the mental trauma, and everything else that that they've suffered at the hands of these people. Really, in a sense, I don't know if you're ever right again. I've had the pleasure of talking to several different survivors over the years, incredibly brave women that have come out and been okay. But I've also had the opportunity to deal with survivors who were never the same again, who it got the best of their life and drug addiction took over their life and they were never able to recover. So it's
because with drug addiction, if you ever try to get sober, reality comes and all those nightmarish days and nights come back. So I could I don't want to rationalize the drug addiction, but I could kind of understand why if I was in that situation, I would want to be in a suspended reality to never have to face those demons.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where it's completely understandable when you hear the stories about, the things that these girls go through, everything from being branded and with the trafficker's mark to, and I don't want to say that this is minor stuff, but, then you get into the real serious stuff, like we were talking about with the infant child porn and the rape stuff and, all that stuff that just takes, despicable, one level higher. I mean,
I don't even think there's a word creative.
No,
to describe that type of
No, there's
sociopathic tendencies.
no,
to
it's
be,
in
it's
it's. I mean, it's like I said, the best way that I've ever been able to put it is just pure evil. I don't know any other way to put it. I don't know of any other way to describe it, except for just absolutely pure evil. And you know, it's just absolutely one of the most horrific things that that I've ever seen, that I've ever witnessed, and I would it's scary what human beings are capable of doing to each other.
Yeah, and to do to children,
Yeah.
the most innocent of humans, where they don't know anything, like they don't know darkness yet. But you're teaching it to them at the deepest level. So when you do reach out to the communities and give speeches and stuff like that, what's the feedback you get from parents and from kids?
You know,
and what ages are the kids that you do talk to? Because I would assume, I don't know, just being ignorant of it, you can't talk to the youngest of kids because they're not really going to grasp it.
No.
So,
I would, let's see, the last school that I spoke at was, I think it was about a year ago now, maybe a little longer. It's been a while. They were all junior high kids, 7th, 8th graders. And that's kind of, you know, when it gets into the trafficking stuff, that's kind of the age, where I'll stop with that. Now, I've got no problem talking to like 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, but the message changes significantly.
right.
And that message to them mostly becomes about, you know, things that 4th, 5th, and 6th graders have to worry about today that we didn't have to worry about, you know, when we were that age. You know, things like internet safety, you know, and kind of
social media, dating sites.
Exactly, social media, things like Kik, stuff like that, where all these, you know, I mean, we're talking about, you know, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th graders now have iPhones. They've got access to the internet at the touch of a button. You know, and they need to learn what's safe and what's not safe. And then when we get into the older kids, you know, the junior high and the high school kids, it becomes not only about the internet, but it becomes about your social surroundings, you know, and being aware of what's going on around you and the people that you associate with, especially heading into colleges. College campuses are a very ripe place for traffickers to get their hands into people, because they got young kids that are away from home for the first time. They're experimenting in things that they've never done before. They
were most likely sheltered.
Exactly.
So
they are in a very vulnerable state to be taken advantage of. You know, they don't understand how the world works yet, and so we try to educate them on that, and we try to, you know, educate them on how not to become a victim and how to just be smart in today's world. And when we talk to parents, we talk to them about the same thing. You know, and we get mixed feedback, and we get feedback that ranges from everything to where, wow, this is a great message. Thank you so much, to, you know, to some of the parents that we talk to, oh my goodness, you're just trying to make us paranoid. It's not that bad. And, you know, I always tell them the same thing. I tell them, I said, listen, sir or ma'am, I don't know what else to tell you besides what I've said here today, but I sincerely hope that you never have to use the card that I just gave you, that you never have to dial that number, and because then you're going to understand. And you know, and I told you this story, you know, earlier, you know, about the prospective donor that I talked to a while back that essentially said, well, you know, why would I donate? Because it's not going to help me. You know, and I talked to my board member helped me rationalize it. And unfortunately, my board member is right. There's going to be a certain population of people out there that won't understand what you're doing or won't agree with what you're doing, until they need your help. And that's unfortunate, because I don't ever want anybody to be in that spot, and I sincerely hope that nobody ever is. But that's just, you know, the unfortunate way things work.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Like, I guess it does kind of lend to an ignorance in a way, because you can't, like, we're having this conversation, and I've had a bunch of moments where I'm like, man, that's crazy, but it almost humans want to have that, like, that willful ignorance, right? Like, you can't imagine that'll happen to my kid, or that couldn't happen to me. When all it takes is one instance.
Absolutely.
And then your whole world changes.
And you just hit the nail right on the head. There's, if I had $1 for every family that I talked to, that said during one point or another during our conversation, I can't believe this is happening. I wouldn't have to work ever again because it truly is that particular situation. Nobody wants to believe that it can happen to them or happen to their child, until it does. And then it's like, wow, I can't believe this is happening. It's like cancer, right? Nobody wants to believe they can get cancer. Then it happens and all of a sudden it becomes real. And I think it's a little bit of that. And I think for some people, when I start talking about, stories that I just shared, about stuff on the dark web and stuff like that. And I think there's also a certain population of people that it's just such horrific stuff. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to believe it exists. And the easiest way for them to do that is just not to even acknowledge it.
Yeah, it's easier to not be involved. And it's just sometimes like I'm processing what we're talking about, but it's hard for a mass amount of people to be like, that can't be real. You know what I mean? Like it even has my words stuttering just because it's so amazing. It's so incredible that things like this happen. And talking about the dark web is a conversation that I feel like should be brought up more and bring it to light so people know about it. Because if, you know what I mean? Like if you don't know about these things, how would you know how to defend your son against or your son or daughter against it and not have those conversations where we as a society, I think in America, or I could put it across the board, we like to protect our kids from everything. And I think that's not the right way to go about it. We have to show them and not necessarily immerse them, but show them that, look, there's this other side to people that you need to know about. Like teaching kids, because we were brought up like, hey, be stranger danger and stuff like that. We were brought up in those times where now there's no escape from that because stranger danger can send you a message through Kik, through Facebook, through Instagram, and then you don't know what you're really seeing. So it's almost at a deeper level now where kids are more oblivious to it and at the same time more exposed to it.
And I completely agree. And I think another barrier that we're fighting with today's generation as far as parents go is we truly have right now a big generation gap as far as like technology goes. And the things that kids have at their disposal today, we did not have. I mean, listen, I remember going back to my junior high school days, and I was at the very early onset stages of, dial-up internet with America Online, AOL. When you used to, wait to go home after school and get on the chat rooms and, but, like I was saying earlier, the internet has done a bunch of great things in this world. I mean, there have been so many accomplishments that just would have been possible without the internet. However, like everything else, it's created some very bad things as well. And one of the bad things that it's created is an avenue for these predators to be able to get at children, to be able to pass their product and their pornography from person to person, to be able to connect with people of similar minds and talk. And so that's one of the downfalls of the internet. Is it's given these people an avenue to conduct their business, so to speak. And that's, I think, the generation gap that we're fighting, is trying to make parents understand that, listen, I know you want your kid to have an iPhone when they're, 12 years old, and, you think that it's a safety issue. You need to be able to get a hold of them, and I get that, but also understand that there are things out there like Kik and even Facebook to a certain extent, and other social media sites that these predators use to, contact these kids and to take advantage of them. And it's as simple as this. There's software that parents can install on their children's phones that will allow them to track the phone. There's software.
Yeah, there's applications, right? Like if they have an iPhone, they have Find My iPhone.
Yep.
If you know of any other apps, feel free to let it out, man, because people need to know.
Don't have them off the top of my head. I've got them written down somewhere, but I don't have them off the top of my head. But there's even an app that you can buy and install that will mirror your child's phone, so you can see who they're texting, you can see what they're doing. And at the end of the day, let me tell you something. If all you want is for your child to be able to have a form of communication, so you can get a hold of them, guess what? Flip phones still exist. and they call just fine.
Absolutely.
There's no reason for a 12-year-old to need the iPhone 6 or the iPhone 7. It's not needed. You know, and so the other thing too is it's real simple. All kids today, they have laptops, they have tablets. You know what? Guess what? The rule in the house needs to be, if you're going to be on the tablet, you're going to be on the laptop, you're going to be on the computer. If you've got only one computer in the house, then it needs to be at a central location, in the kitchen table, in the dining room, somewhere where there's absolutely zero privacy for them to, you know, be able to talk to somebody that they're not supposed to. You know, if your kids have social media sites, guess what? When I grew up, being a child was not a democracy. Privacy was not an option. So guess what? If they're living under your roof, go ahead and say, if you're going to have a Facebook, if you're going to have a Twitter, if you're going to have all these things, I need the passwords. It's that simple.
And then tell them as to why you need them.
Exactly.
Because have that conversation. Don't tell them, look, I want, because, you know, us as kids, the most we did as kids was when we went into our own rooms, we locked the door.
Exactly.
That was basically the privacy we had. That was it.
Yep.
So talk to the kids and build that relationship like we were talking, and tell them, look, these are the reasons why X, Y, and Z, why I want access to these things, because of all these situations. Given, it might not ever happen to you, but if something terrible does, give them that reality check. If something terrible does, I have complete access and I can find you as quickly as possible. Absolutely.
And in today's world, that's also very vital. If I've got somebody that calls me about a missing child, you know, whether I have to do it remotely or whether they're here locally or somewhere where I can drive, the very, very first thing I do is ask, number one, to see all the electronic devices, the computers. And then if you've got the passwords, I ask to see those, because that's where everything starts. And you would be, one thing this generation does do that helps, whether it's us, whether it's law enforcement, is they tend to put their whole lives on social media. So
selfies,
exactly.
All that type of
so
stuff.
it's not, you know, it's not hard, to see what they're up to. Usually you can build a pattern of behavior. You can find who they're chatting with. But that's also very important, for parents to know, is because if something does happen, that's going to be the first thing any investigator is going to ask to see, whether it's us, whether it's law enforcement. The first question out of their mouth is going to be, I need to see the computer and I need to see the social media accounts, because that's where everything happens. And trying to get parents in today's world to understand that stuff is where, you know, where it gets tricky, because they're trying to wrap their minds around technology that just simply wasn't there when they were that age, and we're having to teach them all new behaviors. And I think that will get better as this generation gets older and starts having kids. The education piece as far as technology, I think, will get easier, because these kids will understand how it works and what technology is capable of. You know.
And it's crazy, right? Because we're talking about it like we're in our 60s. We're not that old.
No.
Like the advances in technology since we were in high school, which is 14, 15 years ago, you know, have been so incredibly vast. Where it's like, holy crap! Slow down for a second. I just got used to T9 texting. Well, that's an old reference right there.
T9. I mean,
T9. I thought T9 was the coolest. I was like, wait, I don't have to wait every time. Pop, 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 pop. That's my sound for text messaging.
Listen,
so
I was just having this conversation with one of my kids at the office the other day, because me and my coworker were talking about the old school dial-up internet. And this kid had absolutely no idea what dial-up internet was.
None.
I mean, so it's technology advances at a completely different pace, really, than anything else. And what we consider to be great technology now, give it 5 years and it'll be yesterday's news. You know.
Yeah, hell, give it 3 months.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
like a new phone comes out with all new processing, a new laptop. Every 3-4 months, you're like, I got the most outdated stuff of all time. Then, like, what am I listening to? What do I have in my phone?
Absolutely.
It's insane, man. It really is.
And in today's world, stopping these predators, a lot of it starts and stops with understanding technology, and at the end of the day, just being more aware about everything, having greater understanding of what's going on in the world and what people are capable of and how they operate. If you can just, be smart and be aware of what's going on, your chances of becoming a victim are going to go down a whole lot, and because if you're aware of these people's tricks and how these people operate, they're not going to work on you and they're not going to work on your child. Now, don't get me wrong. There still are the very few instances, and they still do happen, of forceful abductions and where people are just grabbed against their will. And outside of being aware of your physical surroundings and having and doing just your typical stuff of making sure you're always in a safe place and not walking alone at night, or in bad neighborhoods and doing stuff like that. Outside of your common sense stuff, like that, even doing stuff like that will keep you from being a victim of things like that. But, there may not ever be a way to stop that completely, but you can always do stuff to make yourself, less of a victim and less of a desirable victim. I always tell, one of the things that I tell women, especially when I talk to college-aged women, listen, if you're going to go out to the clubs and you're going to go out to the bars and have a good time, that's fine. But don't get so overly intoxicated, number one, that you don't know what's going on around you.
And have a buddy system.
Have a buddy system. Take a friend. Make sure that you're not walking home alone at all hours of the night. Make sure that, take a cab if you're going to go too far. Make sure that you always got somebody with you. If you have to be alone, make sure that you call and tell somebody, hey, listen, I'm leaving here. I should be here in the next 30 minutes. If I don't make it, then please try to call me.
Hell, I'll give you an example of what I'm doing, right? Because you know how Uber is a thing now,
absolutely,
right? So which I find terrifying and awesome at the same time. So when I take an Uber, when I can't get a cab right away and I just take an Uber, like I'll take a screenshot of who I'm going, who's my Uber, and I'll send it to my wife or my friends. Like, listen, if something happens, because at the end of the day, this is a complete stranger, right? Like that's picking me up.
Absolutely.
Like, listen, if something happens to me, this is a license plate, this is the name of the person, and this is a picture. This guy got me.
Well, I mean, let me tell you something, right? Every time you get into an Uber cab, it looks like it could be the beginning of an episode of Criminal Minds.
Absolutely. I feel like this. Like, am I being filmed? This is about to be terrible.
Exactly. So, but that's the thing. It's about being smart, and it's about just being more aware of your surroundings, whether it's in the digital world or the physical world. If you just pay more attention, you're going to make yourself a less likely target, and that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to make people more aware, because I prefer to help people now before it's too late. If I can do something now to help somebody from becoming a victim, I would prefer to do that as opposed to having to help them, after they've been missing for, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, a year, however long it may be, because my chances to help you now are a lot greater than they are if I have to take the case once you're missing.
So what are some of the advices that you give to kids and to parents as far as their social media? I know we talked about like their passwords and stuff like that, but when you're just talking to the kids, because that's a tough sell, right? To tell kids, hey, give your parents all your passwords, yada yada yada, because they're gonna be like, you're crazy. That's not gonna happen.
Absolutely, especially when you're dealing with the high schoolers. I mean,
right, of course,
because we've all been there. The high schoolers know it all. They've done it all. They've seen it all.
Oh yeah, high schoolers are Albert Einstein. Every single one of them have figured everything out. Always,
nothing's going to change them. And with the high schoolers, you've got to play a little bit of devil's advocate, and you got to make an impact with high schoolers. You got to do something. Even going back to my high school days, the things that I remember about high school, even academically, were the teachers that did things in the classroom that made me go, wow. That's what I remember. So when you're talking with them, you've got to flick that same switch. You've got to make them walk out of there and going, oh man, this is serious stuff. And so, what we do is I don't try to scare them, but I tell them some of these stories. I tell them the story about the girl that snuck out of her house to go meet the guy in New York City that she met online and wound up tied up in a dog cage. I tell them stories, about a girl from Las Vegas, Nevada that went to a party, got drunk, got grabbed, and wound up in a brothel in Mexico, you know. And I show them the internet links, and I show them the photographs. And so they can look at it and see that this isn't just some guy up here telling me a story. This stuff happens. This could be me. You know, I make sure and I show them and my hotline number, and I tell them that number is the number that your parents are going to have to call if this happens to you.
Give that hotline number out, man.
Our 24-hour hotline number is 305-609-1918, and that's our hotline number. And you know, anybody that may need our help, anybody that maybe wants us to come talk to their group, whatever group that may be, you can call that number. You can also email us at info@antipredatorproject.org.
And it's Anti-Predator Project, all one word, no dashes.
All one word. .org. And get information if you want us to come talk to you. If you need immediate assistance, I highly recommend calling the hotline number, or you can also email us if you need immediate assistance, with help@antipredatorproject.org. And that goes to a special email account that usually hits my phone, and I know that if I get an email to that account, I need to pick it up and get back to whoever that individual is right away. So,
and that's all hours of the night. You just respond.
Yeah.
Does it just go to you? Does it go to your wife? Does it go to I guess network wide or organizational wide, or it goes to you?
9 times out of 10, it comes directly to me. I've got everything, you know, I've got the office phone wired and forwarded to my cell phone. And my cell phone stays on all night. So if you need to call me at 3 in the morning, I pick up the phone. You know, we've done it before. We've been rolled out of bed at 3 in the morning and had to go meet people at all hours of the night. We've done it. You know, if I get a ding on my email, it's a help account. I'll get up at 2 or 3 in the morning and respond to that right away. So, you know, 99% of the time it comes to me. Now there are times where, you know, I do occasionally take vacations, not very often, but I will get out of town eventually. But one of the other team members will then, you know, usually take over the phones for a week or 2 weeks while I happen to be out of town, just to make sure that the number's covered, because it is our 24-hour hotline, and we don't ever want anybody that needs help to be able to call us and not get help. Now there are times where if you know need help right away and you call, you may get my voicemail. That's simply because if it's business hours, I might be at my office, I might be in a meeting, but no worries. Leave me a message and I will get back to you right away. I just usually have to step out of a meeting or excuse myself from something to be able to pick up the phone. So just please leave me a message with your contact information. I will always get back to you. I have yet to never get back to anybody, including the people that call me about space aliens and the CIA.
Yeah, you gotta get those conspiracy theories
absolutely.
in there. Yeah, aliens are real, by the way. Let's just move on. So one thing I wanted, have you had instances where somebody calls you, I don't want to say prior to contacting the police, or in that same time frame where they just want as much help as possible, or is it typically like a couple years later or a couple of days later and it's almost like a last resort because they, you know what I'm saying? Like, do they turn to contact the police or do they call you for? How does that timeline typically or usually, or how's that worked out in the past?
Well, we get a little bit of both, and let me preface this with always telling everybody, listen, if something like this does happen, your first call always needs to be 911, and for a couple of reasons. Number one, they can usually respond the fastest right away. Number two, you need to have a missing child report filed or a missing person report filed with law enforcement, because that report will then go into their NCIC system and go out nationwide. So if anybody comes in contact nationwide with your child or with, you know, whoever you think may have them, they will know. So the sooner that report and that information goes into the NCIC system and law enforcement, the better. So you always need to contact law enforcement first. Now, if we get some instances where people will call us because they're not happy with what law enforcement is doing. And that happens on a couple of different levels. And I guess people need to kind of understand how law enforcement works in order for this to make sense. Because I get it. When your kid goes missing, when your loved one goes missing, it's a very challenging time, and you're very emotional, and you want something done right now. You want it done 2 days ago. You don't have time to wait. Well, what people don't understand is that, number one, it takes a minute to get the investigative wheels into play. Okay, they've got to do things like go through the computer and go through the electronic devices. And most detectives aren't really trained to do that. So what they have to do is they have to pass that on to their computer forensics people and let them do that. So there's going to be a little time delay there.
Right, because those computer people and those detectives are, not to put it in a callous way, but backed up with similar cases.
Absolutely.
And tons of different situations where, again, it becomes that part where I'm the most important person because it happened to me, where there's 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 cases that this detective might have, and pile that on to the computer forensics people, they might have everybody else's. So it's a backlog of
absolutely. It becomes
a bunch of stuff.
It becomes a backlog of problems, and so that's one issue. And then you also have the issue where parents will say, "Well, their cops aren't telling me anything." Well, what we do is we really aren't any different in that aspect. We don't talk about. I will be more than happy to say what cases we're involved in, but I don't give any details about ongoing investigations, just as law enforcement doesn't. And I don't give the details to the parents. I don't give the details to relatives. The only people that I share details about ongoing investigations with is law enforcement, and my other investigative team members. And it's not done to keep the parents in the dark. It's not done to keep everybody in suspense. It's a case integrity issue on several different levels. And it's a safety issue. Number one, we might have a situation where, the parents may have called and filed a report, but we don't know if the parents are involved. So that's number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, it might be a situation where, you end up, say some little kid has been taken by a pedophile and you happen to let to the dad or somebody slip that, you think so-and-so, may have something to do with it, and they go track that person down and put a bullet in their head. Well, now you've caused an issue on several levels. You've sent that person into a spin and a rage and caused them to do something that, they probably normally wouldn't do, that's going to put them in jail for a long time. And if that guy did have something to do with it, guess what? Now he can't tell you anything.
Now you can't get any answers.
It's all case integrity stuff. And so when we get calls like that, the first thing that we always do is we call law enforcement, we speak to the detectives, and 9 times out of 10, the detectives are very forthcoming with us. They're more than happy to talk with us, and let us know what's going on. And we'll, in those cases, there's a lot of times they'll call and they'll say, well, can you help us out? And we'll call and talk with law enforcement and find out that everything law enforcement's done is everything that we would have done. There's nothing different that we would have done. So we'll go back to the family and we'll try to act as a liaison between them and law enforcement and explain to them, listen, we're working with them, but they're doing everything that can be done at this point in time.
Right, because sometimes the family wants to hear it from a fresh voice and believe that a fresh set of eyes, you know what I mean? Absolutely. Like somebody who has that knowledge. Because for the most part, 90% of people don't know what it takes to be law enforcement or what it takes to be a police. Absolutely. And what it takes to do those things. And sometimes, to not relate it to current stuff, but sometimes I feel like there has to be a little bit of that clarity in a way.
No,
so they can know that, like, look, these are the steps that we're gonna take, and we'll keep you informed along the way. But again, it becomes a thing where, like, there's not enough cops for the crimes that are being committed. So you can't get back to everybody within a timely manner, but you at the same time, time is passing incredibly slowly for the victims' families.
Absolutely.
So it's an incredibly tough job, man. I've shared on my social media and stuff like that about these certain instances where cops have done something wrong, and I've never ever diminished like how hard that job is. I will never diminish it because it's an incredibly demanding job. You know what I mean?
It's like everything else, you know, and you get into the state of law enforcement today and what's going on in the world. It's like every profession. You know, there are going to be some bad ones that creep in, and there's nothing that you can do to stop it. You know, I work with law enforcement agencies all over the country, all over the world, and my experiences have always been very positive. Now we have run into some difficulties, and we've run into some guys that along the way that, you know, I haven't been impressed with and everything else. But that percentage is very small. But there are times when law enforcement could probably perform a little better or do something a little different. But, you know, those times are, at least in my experience with what we've done, are they're few and far between. And I think, you know, I think it goes back to just like you said, when it's happening to you, you become the center of your own universe, and you don't think anybody's doing anything right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that becomes the issue. And, you know, 9 times out of 10, law enforcement's, you know, they're doing everything that can be done. And so we'll go back to the family and we'll reiterate that. Now, there are times, too, when we'll talk to a law enforcement agency and they'll say, listen, we've got 4 or 5 different leads going on right now. We cannot cover them all. You think you could help us out? We're more than happy to, you know, help them out with conducting interviews, with, you know, making phone calls, whatever they need us to do. We're more than happy to help them. You know, so
it's a team.
It's a team effort.
The end goal is to make sure. Yeah, exactly.
And that's to bring whoever it is back. Now, we do get those. Those calls aren't near as frequent as calls. We've been getting most of the cases that come across our desk fall under one of 2 categories. They either fall under it's a cold case, so it's been, you know, not much activity on it for about a year, maybe 2 years. And so the family will generally reach out to us and say, hey, you know, listen, you know, can you please help us out? You know, not that the cops aren't doing anything, but can we just get another set of eyes on it? And I can tell you this, as an investigator, I do this a lot. If I've got a case that I've been working on, you tend to get sometimes what you call tunnel vision. And you can only see one theory of the crime, and you can only see one suspect, and you can only see one this and one that. And sometimes it helps to get a different set of eyes on it and say, listen, look at this. Maybe I'm missing something. And so we get a lot of calls like that from families saying, hey, listen, do you think we could, like going to a doctor and getting a second opinion, do you think you could look at this for us?
Right.
You know, and then we get other cases where there are, you know, like we discussed earlier, jurisdictional boundaries at play. Maybe there's an international border, and it's safer to deal with a private agency. Maybe, you know, it's a cross-country deal and it's easier to deal with us. Where there's, multiple jurisdiction crossings, and we can cut through the red tape faster than a law enforcement agency can. Or there's a compliance issue. You know, one of the things that we run into here, sometimes is, you know, they form these different task forces within law enforcement, whether it's a drug task force, a human trafficking task force. But those task forces, you know, based on how they're funded and what they do, they can only take, you know, certain types of cases. And there's a lot of human trafficking cases that, you know, on paper look like a simple missing persons case, but there's a lot of circumstantial stuff and other reasons that lead you to believe it may be a trafficking case. So we'll get handed a few of those cases every once in a while by law enforcement where they'll say, listen, on paper, this looks like a missing persons case, but we believe it might be something else. Do you think you could look at it? So we get our calls in a variety of different ways, you know, and then, you know, sometimes we'll get somebody call the hotline and you know, it's a trafficking victim and they're in a hotel and they need to get out safely. You know, we'll get calls like that. So, we get a real wide variety of calls. You know, and like I said earlier, I mean, I had a guy 2 weeks ago call me and tell me that the CIA was listening to his thoughts. So, we get them all.
That's what happens when you put that number out there, man. You're going to get some crazy calls.
Crazy that they come calling, but, it's, I would rather field the call from the occasional crazy than, miss a call from somebody that really needs help. So that's why that phone always gets answered.
Yeah, man, you got to answer every phone call because you never know
Absolutely.
what it could be. That's insane, man.
Yep.
Dude, this has been incredible, man. This has been incredibly enlightening. I'm just processing everything. I'm like one of the listeners because these are things that I never thought of. Like, again, you watch these shows on television and then you can't realize that stuff like that is actually happening in the world, and worse things than that.
Yeah.
And the fact that people share it and there's an audience and a community for that is even sicker because there's people who thrive on it, like you said earlier, where people get off on it, where, you know what I mean? People, you might be sitting at home watching it on the dark web, and this is exciting to you. Like, that's incredibly dark. And these are people that could every day look like regular people. They could be city council members. They could be a teacher at the school. You never know who these people are.
Oh, absolutely.
So people have to be, this is why I'm enjoying this conversation, because people have to be aware that, yes, people can be kind, but at the same time, people can be terrible.
Absolutely.
So you have to be alert to both sides of it, man. So let's end it here with, let's talk about, mention again your hotline number and your website and give everything to the people.
Absolutely.
And as soon as we're done here, I'm throwing it on YouTube and we can share it to all the socials, man.
Absolutely. The name of our agency is Anti-Predator Project. We're based out of Miami. You can find us online at www.antipredatorproject.org, all one word. From there, you can get connected to all of our social media sites, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all that stuff. We're on all of them. And if you ever need help, if you need assistance, you can contact us through the website. If you need help right away, you can email us at help@antipredatorproject.org. If you need information regarding speaking engagements, just general information, you can email us at info@antipredatorproject.org. And if you need to talk with somebody, you need immediate assistance, we have a 24-hour hotline that will connect you to usually me, and that number is 305-609-1918.
Fantastic. Man, it's been a pleasure. I would love to talk about more stuff, and I feel like there's so many more stories we can get to, but I feel like the people need some time to process everything they just heard. So we're definitely going to touch base again. We're definitely going to record again. And it's been a pleasure, Trent, man. Until next time.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I really enjoyed it. You have a great night, man.
All right, bro.
All right.